Welcome to LAN and how to find LAN IP address. My name is Alex Morose and I will be your tutor during this video tutorial course. This video tutorial course is recorded for a total beginner. Before we will go ahead and learn how to find LAN IP address, let's go ahead and talk about LAN and learn what is LAN. So what is LAN and LAN IP address? LAN stands for Local Area Network. A LAN IP address is Local Area Network IP address, of course. That is, in your case, LAN IP address of workstation, server, or laptop that connected to a router or hub through a cable or wirelessly. Let's go ahead and go through the example, and during this example I will go ahead and explain to you in details what is LAN. Let's assume you're in the office or at home and you can see that black box, and that black box somebody called router. And so what is the router? Pretty much router is the black box that has connected some cables to it, at least one cable that connected to a cable on a wall, and or a TV cable. So pretty much it's receiving the internet connection, and then there is a possibility some computers can be connected through a cable through that black box, or if it has some antennas as this one, it probably has the wireless capabilities. And most of the routers in 2013, 2010 and in the future will have the wireless capabilities. So there is no it's not going to be necessary for them to have the cable connections. So router, as we just discussed, should be connected to some devices, should be connected with some devices through a cable or through a wireless. So what are those devices? It can be desktop PCs, Macintosh, or just PCs, it doesn't matter. And it can, let's say, as you can see on the left, there is a black PC. It can receive and send the data information packets from the router. It can receive the data information packets, and it can send the data information packets to a router. Those data information packets can be anything. It can be part of the text document, it can be part of the file or a document itself, it could be image, email, and etc., or part of the video or even the whole video. Same rule applies for the Mac, and pretty much same rule applies to any device that is connected to the router. Any devices can communicate with the router through sending and receiving the data packets. It can be established through a cable, or it can be established through a wireless connection. Printer as well, receive and send data packets. It can be laptop, it can be iPhone, you name it. It can be anything. It can be data backup storage or something like that. Also, most of the routers connected to the internet, ISP, or sometimes called WAN, Wide Area Network, which pretty much it's a cable that connected to the router, and it's basically internet connection for that router. And that means that it can receive and send the data packets from the internet. So basically it can receive the data packets from the internet and send the data packets to an internet. So pretty much it's as I told you, it can be part of the document, email, video, music, photo, anything. It can also pretty much share the internet. In our case, as you can see with the iMac right here, it's receiving the internet connection to a router, and then router is sending that internet connection to an iMac. And other devices could be disabled, or it can be just multiple devices that sharing the internet connection, like iPhone, iMac, and laptop, and printer, and let's say black PC will be disabled. You can do this option under the router administration panel. Any router comes with administration panel where you can set some security features, some connection features with the devices, and etc. Or you can make all of the devices connected to the router. It can be protected with and receive the internet. It can be protected with the password. and logging, or it can be just by default without anything. You can disable the whole protection, but it's not recommended, and it's great for you to go when you're purchasing the router, or if you're administrating the router, go on the router, learn how to go under the router administration panel and set the security features as you're going to administrate the router at the first steps. Okay, you can basically pretty much you can communicate, as you can see right here, I'm communicating with the black PC, communicating to the router, and then communicating with the printer. You can do this as well. It can be done as again through a wireless, or can be done through a cable, and the other devices is not going to be communicating with the printer. As again, you can enable this option under the router administration panel, or you can make them all communicating with the printer and communicating with each other. Router can so pretty much router and all the devices that connected to the router is called LAN, local area network, as again router as a head and devices is connected to it as a child to it. Let's just assume like that. Router also can be connected to another router, and that another router can have basically its own LAN, its own local area network with its own devices around it. And when those two routers will be communicating, they pretty much will be communicating with two different networks, local area networks, and with the devices that will or will not be able to communicate with each others or with another devices on the other local area network. As again, it's up to the administration and administration panel, this administration panel settings. As you can see, every router has the IP address, and not only every router, every device that connected to a router has its own IP address. So pretty much it's acting like a telephone number, like a name. If you would like to go ahead and call somebody, you need to know its telephone number. If you don't know its telephone number, there is no way for you to communicate with that person. Pretty much same rule applies here. If you don't know the IP address, this IP address, this number is called IP address, Internet Protocol address, and it's pretty much acting as a phone. If it's connected to a router, it's called LAN IP address, local area network IP address, because it's connected to a router, and then router connected to the internet. When the device connected to the internet directly, then it will call WAN IP address or public IP address. But when the device connected to a router and then router connected to the internet, then it will be called LAN IP address, which is local area network IP address, because it's communicating with the router, and router is again as the head of the local area network or LAN. And every device should have its own IP address, and you can see it's unique and different. And I put some IP addresses in red font. It doesn't matter, they're all acting as the same, and there is no such important IP address or not in this case. And pretty much, as you can see, router IP address starts with the ending 1 or 100. It's always rule applies like this, and pretty much it's going to be the beginning of the IP address. And then you can see the iMac in our case has 2 in the ending digit, and then a laptop has 3, iPhone has 6. So pretty much you can say under the administration panel, under the router, to go ahead and apply the IP automatically, or you can basically to set the IP per devices manually and assign those last digits the way you want them to be. As again, there is multiple options under the administration panel, and you can go ahead and learn them by visiting administration panel of your router. And if you're owner of that router, you can go ahead and read the manual, and it will explain to you step by step how to do so. Okay, so in our case right now, you can see that black PC communicating with the router. So black PC address is 192 its local IP address 192.168.0.4, and it's communicating with the router 192.168.0.1. Pretty much the same IP address except the last digit. So when you see something like this, you probably already know this is the local area network IP address, or LAN IP address. And pretty much LAN IP addresses starting with 192 dot and blah blah blah. And let's say we would like to communicate through the laptop, which is 192.168.0.3, with the desktop black PC, which is 192.168.0.4, through some software or through some game. And it could be done wirelessly, even if the laptop will be connected to a router through a cable. I mean, not the laptop, but black PC through a cable. Laptop can have wireless connection, and it can be done like that as well. It doesn't matter what type of connection to the how the device communicating with the router. It can be done as, again, through the wire or through the wireless. And pretty much the software on the laptop will communicate with the router, and we'll say, okay, I would like to go ahead and start to communicate with the 192.168.0.4, and the router will just go ahead and pull that device and basically will receive the data packets from that device, and then will routing those data packets to a 192.168.0.3. So this pretty much router is like a telephone company, and when you're calling somebody, you're calling through the telephone company, and then telephone company basically routing you to somebody's phone number, to that person's phone. So pretty much acting the same. Here we go, and you can see same rule applies to all of those devices. So let's say you're sitting in a room with the 5 computers and few laptops, and there is a big black box, and you know it's a router, and it has some wireless capabilities, and you can see some cables connected through from some computers to it, and you chase those cables and you see it's connected to a router and to the computer that you're sitting on. Let's go ahead and learn how to find the IP address of that computer. Let's say your friend sitting on another computer, and to be able to play a game through a LAN, or to be able to communicate through some software through a LAN, you need to know your LAN IP address, but there is no way for you to find out because it doesn't have the address on the computer, and you don't know what is the IP local area network IP address for that computer, or LAN IP address for that computer. So how to find out? Let's go ahead and learn how to find out. Pretty much it's pretty simple if you're on the Windows operating system or Windows Server operating system, and as again this video tutorial is for Windows operating systems only, and you need to open the command line of the Windows operating system, and you need to type ipconfig avoid C user administrator. You can avoid that, just type ipconfig together, as you can see on the screen, space / all, and click enter, and it will pull you some information that I will explain to you in a second. But before that, let me go ahead and show you how to get to the command line for Windows operating system. And keep in mind, this method can be applied with Windows XP, Windows Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8. So pretty much you want to go ahead and open the Windows. On the Windows panel, you want to go ahead and click on Start button, and in the search button, search text box, you want to type cmd and click .exe executable exe, and cmd.exe, click enter. If you are running on Windows XP, basically you need to click Start button and then Run. Click on Run and type in that box, text box, cmd.exe. Click enter, and it will go ahead and bring you to a command line for Windows operating system, which will, for people who are familiar with DOS, which will look like MS-DOS, a pretty old operating system from 1990s. Over here you want to type IP config space / all lowercase, and on everything click enter. It will bring you some information over here. So just go ahead and scroll up or scroll down, and the key that we're looking here will be right here. When you will see the default gateway 192.168 or 192. something, it means that you're at the right position of your text at this box with bunch of text without no spaces. Just go ahead and look at the local default gateway. What is the default gateway? Default gateway will be the router and the address, LAN IP address for the router, or local IP, local area network IP address for the router. In our case 192.168.0.1. So this is the IP address of the router, okay. And what is our IP address for this computer? So the answer is pretty easy, and it's going to be right here. It will say IP address or IPv4 or IPv5, anything right here. It will say IP address and 192.168.0.6. so this is like a 6 computer connected to our local area network, or maybe not 6, but the administrator from the administration panel of our router just assigned this computer to be a 6, the last digit is 6, and you can apply 6 or you can make it even 62 if you want it. Pretty much this IP address right here look the same as IP address right here, as you can see. Pretty much the same, this IP address, and just the last digits are different. So this is our IP address of our computer. So we already know our computer has local area network IP address or LAN IP address 192.168.0.6, and gateway address always will be our router address, local IP address or LAN IP address 192.168.0.1. So this is pretty much it, and we just find out how to do so. If you don't see this information, just scroll up or scroll down like this with your mouse and find this information. It will be always there if computer is connected to a network, to any type of network, local network, or if computer connected just straight directly to the internet. Instead of 192.168, it will be the IP address, which will start probably with 2 digits, not 3. Usually 3 digits starts for a local area network with 2 digits, and it will be public IP address. And the public IP address is IP address that for the router that connected to the internet, or for the computer that connected directly to the internet. And if local area network LAN with the router and bunch of devices connected to the internet through a router, all those computers will have the same public IP address, which will be public IP address of that router that connected directly to the internet. So public IP address or WAN IP address, wide area network IP address, is pretty much IP address for the devices that connected directly to the internet. And LAN IP address is local area network IP address for the devices that connected not straight to the internet, but for the devices that connected to the router. And it could be multiple devices connected to the router. So it's kind of local, it's not the whole internet, it's just some devices, maybe in some room or in 2 rooms, but it's not billions of computers like on the internet. Pretty much internet is a bunch of LANs connected together. and it's called WAN, Wide Area Network. So we just learned that, and so we find out what is our IP address. Here we go. Now the router is connected to the internet, and of course, like I just told you, it will have its WAN IP address, like 57 whatever, as you can see, starting with kind of 2 digits usually if it's connected to the internet. And if you're looking for a WAN IP address, which is the public IP address of the device that connected to the internet, and router is connected to the internet in our case, so he has 2 IP addresses, LAN IP addresses with the devices that are connected to the router, and WAN IP addresses or public IP address with the IP address that communicating with the internet. Okay, and as again, if device right here we have this computer, and we would like to find out for this computer not local IP address but WAN IP address, this is an extra tip for you. The WAN IP address will be the same as router IP address, and if it was going to be 10 different computers right here, their WAN IP address or public IP address that will be showed on the internet will be the same as the router IP address, but local IP address will be different. So pretty much when somebody from the internet connecting to the router with this IP and it would like to communicate with this computer, router already knows inside, but it doesn't let the person know which computer it is, because you say, router, I would like to play StarCraft 2 and with the person, and router knows exactly what person are on standby and which computer of the local area network with the StarCraft 2, and it basically will go ahead and direct the data packets sent and received to that computer with that IP. But router is not going to let anybody on the internet that information. So you got an idea, right, folks? Well, thank you so much for watching. Like, thumbs up, and subscribe for more videos if you're watching this on YouTube. As again, my name is Alex Moros and I was your tutor during this video tutorial. And please subscribe for more video tutorials. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Happy learning.